I'm not tipping him. He has an attitude, Lauren whispered sharply as she slid her leather purse onto her shoulder, her manicured fingers trembling slightly, not from guilt but indignation. Across the restaurant table sat her friend, Jenna, wide-eyed and awkward, staring at the small black bill holder that contained a credit card receipt with a fat zero slashed defiantly through the tip line. Lauren, are you serious? He was polite. Lauren scoffed. Standing up, he was smug and late with our food, and he just gave me a weird vibe. You saw how he looked at me. Jenna glanced toward the bar where the waiter, a tall black man in his mid-20s with kind eyes and a short, neatly trimmed beard, was busy cleaning a table. He moved with efficiency and grace, unaware he had just been stripped of a tip over a phantom offense. His name tag read Malik. Malik hadn't done anything wrong. In fact, he had handled Lauren's subtle jabs all evening with a professionalism most would struggle to summon. No lemon in my water, even though I asked. She had complained, "This steak isn't medium rare." I said medium rare. She had hissed, even though she'd ordered it medium, every time Malik returned to the table. He smiled patiently, nodded, apologized with sincerity that was far too generous for the disdain he received. As Lauren and Jenna left the restaurant, Malik noticed the empty table and walked over, picking up the bill holder. His eyes lingered on the receipt. No tip, not even $1, just a line aggressively scratched across the space where kindness or decency might have gone. He took a breath and slid it into his pocket. Malik was used to it. That didn't mean it didn't sting. Later that night, Malik sat on the edge of his bed in his modest studio apartment in Brooklyn. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of pipes. He unpinned his name-tag and placed it carefully beside his phone on the nightstand. A sigh escaped him. He reached for his laptop and opened it. The screen lit up to a paused video, his audition tape. "Hi, I'm Malik Johnson," he said in the recording, "and this is my original monologue called The Bus Stop." He pressed play. His voice echoed through the small apartment, full of depth, pain, fire, and humor. Malik had dreams, big ones. He had been waiting not to make a career, but to survive, to buy time, to keep the lights on, to chase something bigger. For 5 years, he had auditioned, trained, submitted reels, and faced rejection. But last month, everything changed. He had been cast in a new network pilot, Brooklyn Reborn, as the lead, a black man navigating gentrification, identity, and redemption. It was raw, it was timely, and he was brilliant in it. He smiled faintly as he watched the trailer, now live online. The show was set to premiere tomorrow. The next evening, Lauren sat with a glass of Pinot Grigio in her hand, curled up on her cream-colored couch in her Manhattan apartment, flipping through channels on the TV. "There's nothing good on anymore," she muttered. "Just garbage." She stopped when she saw the words "New Show Premiere, Brooklyn Reborn, 8/7." A young black man stood in the middle of a crowded street in Brooklyn, staring up at a brownstone. Voiceover playing. "They told me I didn't belong, that I talked too white, that I walked too black, that I smiled too wide." Lauren squinted. Wait, the camera cut to a scene in a diner. The same man, Malik, now in character, wearing a hoodie, staring across a table with piercing emotion. Lauren's wine glass rose midair. "No freaking way." She leaned forward. That's the waiter from last night." Her face went pale. The memory rushed back. The receipt. The zero tip. The smug smirk she imagined. The man she dismissed without hesitation. She sat in stunned silence as the episode played. Malik's performance was magnetic. He carried the show with a quiet intensity, drawing the audience in. Every line delivered with purpose. Every gesture layered with meaning. By the end of the pilot, Lauren felt like she'd been hit by a truck. "That was good," she said to no one. She poured another glass, this time with trembling hands. "Really good." The next day, Brooklyn Reborn was trending on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Malik Johnson's name was everywhere. A star is born. The future of television. Where has this man been hiding? Lauren couldn't escape it. On billboards, in interviews, BuzzFeed articles, 10 things you didn't know about Malik Johnson. And yet, all she could think about was the bill, the zero, the way she'd looked at him. A week later, guilt gnawed at her so much that she returned to the restaurant. She wore sunglasses, a scarf. She hoped he wouldn't recognize her. She asked for a table, then specifically requested Malik. When he approached, her breath caught. He was calm, kind. "Good evening. I'm Malik. I'll be taking care of you today." No flicker of recognition, no bitterness. He had moved on, but she hadn't. She started, her voice catching. "You probably don't remember me. From last week, I was here with a friend. I didn't leave a tip." He blinked. "Okay, I saw your show. You're incredible." A pause. Malik's smile returned, the same patient, professional smile. "Thank you. That means a lot." Lauren swallowed. "I'm sorry for how I treated you. It was wrong." Another pause. He looked at her, not with anger, not even disappointment, just quiet humanity. "I've had worse," he said softly. "But thank you." She left a $500 tip. As she walked out, Malik returned to the bar. His coworker nudged him. "Another big tip." Malik smiled. "Some people just need to see you on TV before they see you at all." The restaurant buzzed around Malik like usual, orders flying, plates clattering, the scent of garlic butter and grilled salmon mixing in the air. But inside, something felt different. He wasn't just a waiter anymore. He was someone people now recognized. And while that didn't change how he treated customers, it changed how they treated him. A couple at table 7 whispered behind their menus, sneaking glances his way. "I swear that's him. That's the guy from Brooklyn Reborn, right?" the woman murmured. Her boyfriend leaned in. "Yeah, Malik Johnson. Man's killing it." When Malik approached, they lit up. "Hey, we're huge fans." The woman blurted, "You're amazing in the show." Malik smiled. "Thank you. I appreciate that. Can I start you off with drinks?" Even after fame had knocked on his door, Malik chose to stay at the restaurant part-time, at least for a while. Not because he needed the money, but because it kept him grounded. He'd promised his mom, who'd passed 2 years prior, that no matter how far he climbed, he'd never forget the people who helped him survive the bottom. He still remembered the nights he'd come home, her voice rasping on the other end of the line from her hospital bed. "Keep pushing, baby. One day, the world's gonna hear you." They finally had. But not everyone clapped. Across the city, Lauren sat with a group of friends at a rooftop bar in Soho, a new cocktail in hand, the skyline glittering behind her. Her friend Craig had brought up Brooklyn Reborn for the 3rd time that night. "I'm just saying, that show is fire. Malik Johnson. Dude's got chops. I watched the whole thing twice." Lauren forced a smile, her cheeks tight. "Yeah," she said carefully. "He's good." "Good." Craig laughed. "He's the next Denzel." "Mark my words." Lauren sipped her drink, the memory of the receipt flashing in her mind. She hadn't told any of them. She didn't need to. It haunted her enough. She kept seeing his face on buses, billboards, interviews on Good Morning America. But the face that haunted her the most was the one in the restaurant that night, the calm, collected, kind waiter she judged before he even spoke. She thought back to their brief conversation when she returned to apologize. He hadn't said much, but his silence said everything. Back in the restaurant, Malik was finishing his shift when his manager, Carlos Dodd, approached. "Yo, Malik, you got a sec?" "Sure." Carlos led him to the side. "I just got off the phone with the producer from tonight at 8. They want to do a segment on you, like a full story. Background, journey, where you are now. You up for it?" Malik blinked. "Me? Why?" Carlos grinned. "Because, man, people love you. And they want to know how a guy goes from waiting tables to primetime TV. You're that guy now." Malik felt a wave of something between pride and disbelief. He nodded. "Let's do it." A week later, the segment aired. The host stood outside the restaurant, microphone in hand. "Behind me is the very place where Malik Johnson served food by day and chased dreams by night. Tonight, We meet the man America's fallen in love with. The screen cut to interviews with coworkers, acting coaches, childhood friends. He was always the most disciplined kid in class, said Mr. Ellis, his high school theater teacher, and humble, even when he got standing ovations. Then came footage of Malik serving tables, holding doors for guests, refilling waters, all recorded quietly by a documentary crew the restaurant had allowed in for the day. Then they cut to an emotional moment, Malik standing beside his mother's gravestone, a bouquet in hand. "She never saw me make it," he said, voice cracking, "but I feel her every time I step on set." Lauren watched the entire broadcast, alone on her couch, her heart sinking lower with each frame. Her wine sat untouched. There was the truth. He wasn't arrogant, he wasn't smug, he was focused, graceful, strong. She had made him small to feel big, judged him because of her own bias, and he had shown her more grace than she deserved. That night, Lauren drafted an email. "Dear Malik, you likely don't remember me by name, but I remember you. I was the woman who refused to tip you a few weeks ago. I made assumptions. I judged you, and I did so from a place of ignorance and privilege. Watching your story unfold on screen, seeing your talent, your journey, it humbled me deeply. There's no excuse for the way I treated you, but I needed to say I'm sorry, truly sorry. I've made a donation in your mother's name to a local acting program for underprivileged youth. I hope it honors her and the legacy she clearly left in you. Thank you for being who you are, and for reminding me how much I still have to learn. Sincerely, Lauren Quinn." She didn't expect a reply. 3 days later, she received one. "Lauren, thank you for your message. It takes courage to look inward. I've met thousands of people through this job. Some forget your name the second you walk away. Some remember your face for the wrong reasons. But I try to treat every person like they matter, because they do. I appreciate the donation. My mom would have loved that. Keep growing, Malik." That night, Lauren cried, not for guilt anymore, but for gratitude, because somehow a man she dismissed had taught her the most valuable lesson of her life. And across the city, under studio lights and camera rigs, Malik Johnson walked onto the set of Brooklyn Reborn for season 2, script in hand, fire in his soul, and the quiet conviction of someone who had nothing left to prove, only stories left to tell. Lauren didn't talk much about the email exchange. It was private, intimate, sacred, almost. She printed it out and tucked it into a journal she hadn't written in for years. That night, she scribbled one line under the printed message. "I saw him on TV, but for the first time, I saw myself." She didn't return to that journal for a long while, but the act of writing that sentence opened a door in her mind she couldn't shut again. In the weeks that followed, something changed in her, subtly at first. She started noticing the way she reacted to people, especially service workers. She caught herself when she began to make assumptions. And for the first time, she questioned where those assumptions came from. She enrolled in a local course on systemic bias at the community center in Harlem. She was the only white woman in the room the first day. She almost didn't walk in, but she did. Meanwhile, Malik's star continued to rise. Brooklyn Reborn was picked up for an extended second season and greenlit for a third before the finale even aired. He graced the covers of Essence, Rolling Stone, and Variety. He got invited to speak at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, where he once applied and was rejected without even a callback. This time, he walked in through the front doors as a guest of honor. "Tell us the hardest part of your journey," a student asked him during the Q&A. Malik paused, thoughtful. "The hardest part." He looked out into the audience, believing that the world would ever see me as more than someone bringing them food. There was a silence in the auditorium that held weight. "But I also realized," he continued, "I had to see myself first. No one's going to respect your voice until you believe it deserves to be heard." The crowd erupted in applause. One of those claps belonged to Lauren. She sat in the back row, hair tied in a modest bun, dressed casually in a navy cardigan and jeans. A notepad in her lap. She didn't go to get noticed. She went to understand. Later that night, she walked home in the cold spring air, feeling a strange peace. She hadn't spoken to Malik since the email exchange, and she didn't expect to. But being in the room, hearing him speak not just lines from a script, but from his soul, felt like witnessing the ending to a story she had once tried to write without permission. Back at his apartment, though it wasn't a studio anymore, it was now a light-filled loft in Fort Greene. Malik stood in front of a corkboard pinned with old photos. His mother, a faded acting class flyer. His first restaurant schedule, taped up like a trophy. He got a text from Carlos, his old manager. Carlos, yo, the producer from Ellen just called me. They want to fly you out for a segment. Malik smiled. Malik, tell them I'm in. And bring your best suit. You're coming with me. Carlos replied with 3 laughing emojis and a hell yeah. Malik looked at the photo of his mom. We did it, Ma, he whispered. The next morning, Lauren sipped coffee at her desk in the marketing firm where she worked. She opened her inbox. One email stood out. Subject, request for personal statement, internal DEI initiative. Her boss had asked if she'd be willing to contribute something personal for the company's diversity and equity newsletter. She stared at the blinking cursor, unsure. Should she really tell them the truth? Would it help? Would it make her look bad? Then she remembered Malik's words. No one's going to respect your voice until you believe it deserves to be heard. She began to type. A few months ago, I judged a man based on his skin color and job. I refused to tip him not because of the service, but because I thought I could. I later learned that man was Malik Johnson, an actor, a son, a dreamer, and one of the most brilliant performers of our time. I didn't just refuse to tip someone, I refused to see him. That moment changed me, and I want to keep changing every day. Because if I don't own this part of my story, I'll never write a better one. She hit send. Then she exhaled. That same day, the Ellen DeGeneres Show aired Malik's segment. He spoke about resilience, rejection, and the tipping point of his journey, both literally and figuratively. Ellen, moved to tears, asked him, "What would you say to people who underestimate others based on appearances?" Malik smiled, calm and humble. I'd say, you're missing out on the best stories. Because some of the most brilliant souls come in uniforms. You're trained not to see. The crowd erupted. Ellen hugged him. Later that night, Lauren sat on her couch and watched the clip again and again. It wasn't just a TV show anymore. It was a mirror. The story went viral. Not just Malik's fame, but the journey behind it. Lauren's anonymous statement, shared with her company's DEI team, was later posted at her permission on LinkedIn. It exploded. Thousands of comments poured in, some critical, some grateful, some raw. But one comment stood out. Malik Johnson, thank you for your honesty. Stories like these help build bridges, and we need more bridges in this world. Lauren sat, frozen, heart pounding. She clicked on his profile. He'd shared the post. It was the first time she cried, not from shame, but from hope. Months later, Malik's memoir, More Than the Tip, hit the shelves. It was raw, funny, moving, a New York Times bestseller in its first week. In the acknowledgments, one line read, "To the woman who once refused to tip me and later taught me that people really can change. Thank you for reminding me grace goes both ways." Lauren read that line at a bookstore in Brooklyn, tears rolling down her cheeks. She didn't need to say anything. She just closed the book, held it to her chest, and smiled. 6 months later, a chilly autumn wind swept through Manhattan, sending yellowed leaves spinning down 7th Avenue. A large marquee outside Lincoln Center read, "An evening with Malik Johnson, a celebration of art, equity, and empathy." The event had sold out in under an hour. Inside, the auditorium hummed with anticipation. Actors, journalists, students, and ordinary fans filled every seat. But one seat, center balcony, was occupied by Lauren Quinn. She hadn't planned on coming. She bought the ticket last minute after seeing a small quote on Malik's Instagram. We build the future with the people we choose to forgive. That line echoed in her for days. As the lights dimmed, a hush fell. A spotlight illuminated the stage. Malik stepped out in a charcoal suit, no tie, shoulders broad and calm. His face had the weight of someone who had lived many lives in one. He began to speak, not with a booming voice, but with a stillness that demanded attention. "I want to tell you about a table," he said. A murmur ran through the crowd. He smiled. It was a normal Tuesday. I was waiting tables, like I had been for years. A woman came in. She didn't see me. Not really. But that night changed both of us. Lauren inhaled sharply. Malik's voice softened. "I don't tell this story to shame anyone. I tell it because it reminds me how far we've come. That night, she refused to tip me. I don't know why. I had 100 guesses, none of them generous. But I also didn't carry that moment like a wound. I carried it like a mirror." He paused. Let it land. That woman later reached out, apologized, donated to youth theater programs, took anti-bias training, spoke out in her workplace. She owned it, and that meant more than any apology ever could. Lauren's eyes glistened. Her hands shook as she clutched the program in her lap. Malik looked out across the auditorium. "She's here tonight." Gasps rippled. Heads turned. Lauren's heart stopped. "She gave me something priceless," Malik continued. "Proof that people can grow. That stories aren't locked in shame. They're rewritten in truth." The spotlight slowly widened. "Lauren Quinn," he said gently. "Stand up." She froze, blood roaring in her ears. 1,000 eyes turned. Slowly, she rose. There was silence, then thunderous applause. Malik smiled, not with smugness, but with pride. He stepped off the stage and walked up the aisle toward her. As he reached the balcony steps, he extended his hand. Lauren, stunned, placed hers in his. He helped her down as the crowd watched in awe. Back on stage, he leaned into the mic. "Forgiveness," he said, squeezing her hand, "isn't weakness. It's architecture. It's how we build a better world." He turned to Lauren. "Thank you for being part of mine." Tears streamed freely down her face. She nodded, unable to speak. After the event, reporters swarmed. Photographers snapped. Malik shielded her gently with his arm. Outside, beneath the city lights, Lauren finally found her voice. "I thought I ruined everything," she whispered. "That day, I felt so small, like I didn't deserve to be seen." Malik shook his head. "That's what shame does. It shrinks you. But you didn't stay there. That's what matters." She looked at him. "Why me? Why bring me up there?" "Because people needed to see what growth looks like," he said. "Not perfection, growth." A gust of wind stirred the air between them. Streetlights shimmered on wet pavement. "Besides," he added, "you're part of my story, and I don't hide chapters. I learn from them." A beat passed. "Can I take you to dinner?" she asked suddenly, laughing nervously. "My treat, tip included." He burst into laughter. "Only if we split the check." They walked into the night not as waiter and customer, not as shame and redemption, but as two people who had found something rare in a cynical world, a bridge built from truth. And across the city, on screens and stages, in classrooms and living rooms, millions more began building their own. Because once you learn to see someone fully, you can never unsee them again. And that was Malik Johnson's real legacy. Not just fame, but the power of one moment, one receipt, one second chance.